Guys, welcome to another episode of the Dreamer Cypher, May 19th, 2021. First of all, I can't believe we're already halfway through the year. That's crazy to me. So we have a new friend that I just met literally less than 5 minutes ago, Erin Angel. Welcome and thank you so much for your time.
Hello.
And, again, I haven't even heard this. So if you wouldn't mind maybe giving us kind of an introduction and telling us a little about who you are and what you do.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, I'm Erin Angel, and I run a small horseshoeing and blacksmithing company in Colorado Springs, and I don't know. I shoe horses on the weekends and try to try to work on my art whenever I can.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What kind of art do you focus on, or what do you do?
I make sculptures out of horseshoes.
Oh, that's awesome. I can't wait to check out some of that. So I don't know how much Scott was able to share, but I'm a poet by nature, writing, creative writing, things like that. I actually built or learned how to create a business based off of creating an art channel on Twitch. So I used to live stream open mics, mostly for poetry and writing, but we would be able to showcase artists. And a lot of that taught me how to be a business owner. And so, in short, I think the tagline now that I've been utilizing is from self-slaughter to million dollar. Basically, I suffered from years of depression, suicide to entrepreneur, business owner. So I have an insurance agency that we sold $1 million within 16 months. I then launched the Two Native Sons, which we're here with Scott, which started as kind of a book idea, podcasting, to now business and life coaching. So
Wow.
yeah, a little bit of all of that, but all of that attributes basically coming from art. Uh, Dr. G. Garrett Goggins says, "Hey, Erin, nice to see you again.
Hello.
Always good to see you, and thank you always for the continued support, Garrett. Much appreciated." So, yeah, like oftentimes these conversations comes from maybe things that are. Oh, Danielle McCarthy also
Oh,
here says, "I love
Danielle.
Erin."
I forgot to tell her that I was doing this tonight. I
Oh
just ran
no,
into her at the store.
no, that's awesome. Yeah, the squad always shows up here, which is amazing. So I had a conversation today with a gentleman, and he was kind of sharing his story. In high school, he basically went from, I mean, he was homeless and got beat up and all of these things, and, basically felt so unpurposed. And he was talking about his life and how he kind of questioned everything and basically felt that he had no worth. And to go from kind of all of this to him showing up on graduation day where he never missed a day of school despite all of that. And so from the time that he walked across the stage, got his diploma, the teachers gave him a standing ovation. And then he looked over, and then his classmates gave him a standing ovation. And the people in the crowd had given him a standing ovation because the story had gotten out about about his storyline. And so understanding and kind of going from that perspective of like feeling like you're unwanted or that you're unneeded and not having any of those things to kind of being able to celebrate in that moment. As an entrepreneur, Erin, have you kind of maybe gone through that, or has your story maybe led to kind of where you're at now, something like that?
Oh boy, in a big way.
Mm,
Um, I will say that my life has, my whole life has been nothing but abuse
mm,
from the time I was a child. And I think walking through all that um, has been a big part of making me who I am today, and the person that I am, the mother that I am, the business owner that I am, all of it. Um, it's
wow.
hard to go through things like that. Um, Oh boy, I'm getting lost in this one.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry. So, and again, guys, um, Erin, I apologize because again, I didn't know, right? And
No,
so,
that's okay.
um,
It's not something that I mind talking about. I just lost a direction there for a second.
sure, sure, no.
um,
So yeah, no, I just what I didn't want is I didn't want people to think that we had talked about this prior to coming in. I mean, that was literally like you just came in the chat, and then again, what oftentimes happens on this segment is whatever Scott and I are maybe going through or we experienced, we kind of talk about, debrief, and then oftentimes it's like, oh yeah, that actually resonates with me. That's something I'm going through. That's something I've been through. So, um, first of all, sorry that you had to go through that, but also at the same time, like I'm thankful that you're here and in the manner that you are, right? Because I feel like that a lot of the things that we have to go through and grow through leads us to who we are today.
Absolutely, I agree, and you know, I think one of the things that you said earlier that sort of resonated with me was the coming through suicidal depression. I think people walk through really hard things sometimes, and you reach points where you just feel completely worthless and completely uh homeless, like not physically homeless, but homeless in your heart.
Mm,
um
absolutely.
and I think that's been that was the scariest thing I have ever experienced, was feeling that sad, I think, you know.
Yeah, no, 100%. Hello, Patrick Massey. Good to see you. Um, Patrick Massey using Scott's tagline, which is "Let's go." So thank you so much, man. It's always good to see you here. When's our next Destin trip, Patrick? You and me? I have no idea. But maybe someday we'll plan it. But Aaron, I guess what I like to know, and again, you can get into as much detail or as little as much as you want. Just be comfortable here. And again, if at any point you're like, "Hey, next subject," we can move on,
Okay.
and that's okay too. But where do you feel like? Do you feel like that through a lot of those things that you went through really kind of taught you maybe that heart story or that hero's journey to allow you to start to begin to grow? So one of the things that I talk about is kind of like this graph chart when things go down, but then as you start to go up, what is that piece, that kind of that low point that also allowed you to start ascending? What does that piece look like for you?
um I think I think it's just um my story kind of looks more like a zigzag line. I think
Mm,
I kind of went up and then fell back down and then went up and fell back down. And I think w- the thing that I drew from in each time of ascent was the stuff that I had already gone through, and knowing that I had made it through.
mm,
So it was kind of drawing from my own heart and my own experience with going through hard stuff. Um, and each time that I've come out of it, I've grown, I've learned about me, I've learned about people. And it's honestly, none of the things that I've gone through, they've all been really hard. I mean, everybody goes through hard things.
yes. Yeah,
And but I think that I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change a damn thing.
I love
You
that. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think somebody had told me the other day, everybody has a sad story, right?
Right.
And again, there's no comparison because you didn't go through it. It's kind of impossible to walk through somebody else's shoes. But what I love is when we get to do this or when we get a chance to talk to people, oftentimes it's that resiliency piece, how they broke through, the power that they went through, all of those things that seem to be really the most important piece. Hey, I see you, buddy. Um, um, but like when you get an opportunity to do that, and again, what you're doing in building, and support with this entrepreneurship with other ladies and things like that, so how, I guess, where do you draw your strength and be able to with that collaboration piece, knowing and hearing other people's stories and things like that?
Oh, I think that is one of my favorite parts is hearing, because it all adds perspective when you hear another person's story, whether it's woman or man. I hear other people's stories, and it offers perspective to my own story. And also, um, maybe I can help add perspective to theirs.
Mhm.
I think I draw a lot from um, building a community of people who are resilient and who have gone through things. And maybe there's some people that are just starting and just learning about how to go through things like this.
Yeah.
And maybe I can be a light for them, and somebody can be a light for me. And it's all like a big long train.
Yeah, yeah. I always kind of describe it as like we're prisms, right? And so
Yeah,
sometimes somebody shoots a light at one angle and we're able to refract it or reflect it into somebody else and vice versa. And so then we just kind of have this effect where, wherever you're gaining that light or inspiration from, but being able to reflect it back out to others.
absolutely. Yeah, I like that.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is awesome. And so you mentioned a couple of different things. You mentioned you're a parent. You mentioned, business owner, artist, all those things. And I feel like that we all have kind of like different identities and different things that we go through. So currently, I guess, what are some of the things that you're like super proud of with, the identities that you're really thriving in or that you feel like that you're really thriving? What are some things that you're proud of?
I am proud of my ability lately to put fear in its place.
I like
I
that.
I'm proud of myself in the last 2 years, in that I have just made a decision to be bold,
Mm,
and I'm doing that in every way that I can, every day that I can. So
I love this so much. That's
I
awesome.
think the beautiful thing with that too, Erin, when you gave that answer, you just lit up, and the smile that came across your face was a beautiful thing to see.
thank you.
And I know during your presentation of 1 Million Cups, you shared the story about how you asked for a horseshoe pick
Yeah,
as a young child and didn't get that opportunity to get it, but you ended up forging your own pick. And just how powerful that story is of how it went full circle and you ended up creating your own pick. So it's kind of creating that story point for you when I look at that. But just hearing that for you and seeing the smile and how you lit up when you brought that up was such a phenomenal thing to see.
thank you.
Yeah, I definitely felt like that there was like instant relief to kind of basically realize like how much you accomplished within, this set time frame of you taking control, so there's definitely empowerment which again, like Scott highlighted there. Danielle says, I love bold. Erin is one of the boldness women I know. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Put fear in its damn place. Yes, Dr. G, love that. So, I love the fact that like in a short 10 minutes here, I'm learning that you're bold, that you're breaking molds, you're coming out of your shell, so to speak, and kind of forging your own journey and your own path, right? And it's such a powerful place to be in. It's such a wonderful place to experience. Also maybe you might see some of the mindset piece maybe change, right? For me, it was kind of realizing that like failure is not a bad thing. Failure is necessary. Becoming imperfectly perfect, and embracing that was good enough, you know. So on your journey right now, like what are some of those things that maybe you're experiencing, or maybe some of those things that some of those molds that maybe you're breaking?
Definitely an element of accepting my failures, and not seeing them as failures anymore. Seeing them as a, a place where I either need to move to the side or move up or move diagonally or even step back. You
Mm.
know, sometimes you gotta step back and it's okay, you know? And I'm learning through this whole process to forgive myself and let things be and still be brave enough to move forward.
I love it. So staying anywhere but stagnant.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then I love that you talk about loving yourself and giving yourself grace. I
Yeah.
actually had a podcast this morning that I was a guest on, and I've done now 10 since March. And my goal was to do 15 for the year. But I have like 7 more booked through June, and I think I have 2 more coming in July. So now the goal is like 50,
Wow.
which is really interesting. But
Congratulations.
thank you,
Cool.
thank you so much. Yeah, I just I'm getting more comfortable sharing my story. But what was important for me today was one of the questions that was asked to me was just, if you could give one single advice to somebody who's listening, what would that be? And my answer was actually learn to love yourself, learn to be selfish in the correct ways, right? Because it's
Right.
hard to give and be in abundance to others if you're not in abundance yourself. The human psyche and the human spirit is so weird because in some ways it's like our worst critics, and we put the harshest things, and the judgment is all on ourselves, and we put the worst things out there. But when you're in need and you're in desperation mode and you're in fight or flight mode and all those things, it's your human spirit, it's your psyche that brings you to a whole nother level of support that nobody else could, right? So it's kind of in this weird spot. So being able to give yourself grace and understanding. So it's like all of those things that I had, the conversation with the gentleman today about his story, the podcast. I mean, it's all kind of coming into fruition with you and all the things that you're saying. So that's kind of, I feel like that life always rewards you with kind of either opportunities or kind of reminders of all the things that you're on the right path, so to speak. So thank you so much for all the things that you're saying to me, because it feels like it's affirmation for me today.
Good deal. Me as well.
Good, good. Um, you know, and here's kind of a topic that I think a lot of people may or may not kind of talk about. And a lot of that is really this: what does that look like to give yourself grace? We talk about it, we say it, we love it when we hear it. Can't be selfless without a little bit of selfish. Absolutely, that's the balance, right, Dr. G? Um, so, Erin, like for you, when you say giving yourself grace and maybe that self love and things like that to be able to be bold, what does that look like from your perspective?
Mostly mostly just silly little one-liners that I
Mm,
use, you
okay.
know, like, you know, just it could be as simple as, "You're okay, Erin. You know, this is all right. You're gonna make it. You
Mm,
know, you you've already made it. You know." And it it's as simple as that. And one that I always fall back on, and this one I just love, and it's my reminder because I have a tendency, I call it mouse mode. I've been abused all my life, and
mm.
it's really easy for me to fall back into mouse mode where I'm like, you know, shrinking in a corner. And my reminder in those moments is, all right, fear is a giant. Fear is a big, powerful, overwhelming thing until you remember that you're powerful too.
Wow. Wow. Can you give us that one more time?
Fear is a giant. It's an overwhelming, big, powerful thing until you remember that you're powerful too.
I love that.
Me too. I love that one. That one always reminds me to put fear in its place.
Yeah, no, for sure. I like that a lot. I'm gonna have you write that out for me. I'm gonna write something on that for you. I love
Okay.
that. I think it's really cool. Um, you know, life like some days it's just really hard, right? And then there's other days when it seems like the flow of things are so much easier. And so what I'm realizing personally too is like when I have bad days, they don't last long, right? Or I don't really have bad days. I really have maybe bad situations, but I can pick and choose how I respond to that, how I come back to it, right?
Yeah.
It helps that I have Scott as a business partner because I basically get free life coaching. So not everybody gets the benefit of that. So luckily I do. But to be able to turn around and basically like be like, man, I'm struggling. He's like, why are you struggling? Right. And Scott just calls it out like it is. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh man, well, I'm having like this stuff and I'm putting out these fires. And he's like, but are they really fires? He's like, where are you visioning them as fires? And I'm like, well, they're not that bad. It's fixable. I can get it done. It just takes longer. And he's like, okay. So he's like, fire's done. What else you got for me? Right. So it's as you kind of go through that, I really feel like that the things that you were saying, right, the little sayings, almost like a mantra, so to speak, and that's powerful in itself that you built that, right, that you have that and that you can rely on it. And so I mean, you've already kind of done a lot of work that maybe life coaches introduce for other people, so you're kind of years ahead. And so the fact that you have to go through to kind of that mouse feeling, so to speak. But to be able to overcome it, to be able to object to it and capture that, that shows you how much power you truly have within you. And to be able to display that here and show that to people, like, you should feel really proud of what you're doing. And even from an outsider's perspective, for somebody who just met you not too long ago, like, I'm proud of what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I actually have this poem that I wrote years ago, and I know it's super early to get into the poem, right, Scott? Because we usually do it at the end. So, okay. It's a short and sweet one, but I really feel like that this kind of fits you. Erin, you are a legend in the making. You might not feel like it every day, but there's a great divide within thyself. This irritability within your own skin, you might be going through the toughest of times, maybe self-loathing, confusion, self-doubt. But these hurdles that life has thrown at you are simply life lessons, allowing you to become the master of them. You might ask, why would I want to be a craftsman of hurt or pain or suffering, of fear? But the fact is that whatever you're struggling with, it's likely you're already an expert in. So if we just flip the script, if we just use our lips and speak life into ourselves, if we just try to see things full perspective, speak positively, speak with certainty, speak as if you're being quoted, being watched, and being celebrated. Because you, my friend, are a legend in the making.
I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, so it just kind of came to me based off of kind of the words that I'm hearing from you. I think a lot of us go through on the day-to-day, some of those different things like, am I worthy? Should I really be doing this? Am I going through this? Is today going to be a good day? All of those different stuff that people struggle with day to day. But you've kind of almost found almost like a way to kind of surpass that maybe a lot of people haven't. And so it's really, truly powerful that you have that. And I think that's something that you should share often with your connections. So that way people can learn that for themselves, because oftentimes it's hard to maybe share some of those things in that vulnerability piece, but I feel like that is a powerful tool that other people can learn from.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Scott, was there any topics that you wanted to go ahead and bring to the forefront today? Anything that you wanted to talk about?
I think the biggest thing Erin has this drive and passion really to focus on empowering women, bring them into a male-dominated trade, and really helping them find who they truly are. And I'm just watching with it on mute because I'm in a car right now, but
Sure.
just watching how she lights up at certain points to see. But I know with her in a ferry role with horseshoeing and whatnot, that's one of those very unique things of finding yourself as a woman in a male-dominated trade and kind of seeing how that mindset is by being in that type of trade.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Like, how did you get into this type of business? What keeps you attached to it? And obviously the male dominated stuff. It's hopefully it's trending down in all kinds of different areas. But love to hear a little bit more about kind of what got you into that.
So the funny thing I tell everybody is I got into horseshoeing because I have a strong back and a weak mind. but honestly, I I don't know what drove me other than other people believing that I could do it, and then suddenly I was doing it, and now that I'm older and I look back on it, I'm so grateful for those people because I wouldn't have given it a shot. I wouldn't have done it. And so I think that a lot of women are in that kind of mindset, for lack of a better way to put that. When we're out of work and when we're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? We immediately think, okay, well, you can always go be a waitress, or, you can, things like that. And I think I just want to show women that other options are available. And if they try them, they might really find their heart in it,
Yeah.
Because I sure did. So I think I'd like to be the person that sort of opens that door for some other women, and even for kids, to be like, hey, trades are a very good way to make a living. And so
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Scott and I talk about this all the time. Like, there's nothing wrong with people wanting to pursue higher education, right? But the school system, I think, was built more or less for factory workers, right? A time frame that we don't live in anymore. And so to be able to scale a corporate ladder is getting slimmer and slimmer because opportunities are lesser and lesser. And so, I'm a firm believer that we should have the ability to experience other things. So having maybe schools built for entrepreneurs, or maybe trade schools that on a higher level, you know what I mean, where you can maybe dabble in that, maybe at that high school level or vocational level, but kind of like a try before you buy type deal, right? Because that would then, I think, eliminate a lot of the debt. That would eliminate a lot of those confusion maybe early on, because you get to try it ahead of time. So I appreciate you bringing to the light about talking about the trade schools and that piece, because I think that often goes missing in today's world right now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my daughter's in high school and they are just pushed to go to college no matter what. They aren't pushed to try anything different, and so I keep that door open for her, for sure. My daughter is a better welder than I am. So, and I don't mind admitting that.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. My welding helmet broke, and I have a 14-year-old daughter that I can be like, hey, kid, can I borrow your helmet?
That's awesome.
So I'm curious, Erin, with what you see at that pushing and really forcing students into a role that they may not fit into, how is that, being a parent where you're at and whatnot, how does that view for you look, and what's your view on that, by being on this side as a parent, entrepreneur, and then seeing your daughter potentially getting pushed down an avenue that may not be for her?
I think it's important for me as a parent to be a strong influence as well. School is a strong influence, and it's supposed to be a strong influence, but I'm her parent and I'm supposed to be a strong influence too. So I think that, you know, as a parent, I just try to keep options open and show her, you know, not just talk the talk, but walk the walk and be like, hey kid, there's a whole other world out there.
Yes.
And it's not, you don't have to spend $100,000 going to college, you know. But interestingly, the biggest dream that I ever had for myself was to graduate from college, and I got about a year and a half into a psychology degree. I was an honors student, and you know, my husband left, and I was just left with this decision, and went to talk to one of my favorite professors, and she sort of laid it on the line for me, and she was like, look, you're going to spend X amount of dollars to still walk into an entry level position after you graduate. And, you know, or you could go walk into an entry level position now and in 4 years have 4 years of experience, you know. And I think if it weren't for her kind of putting it to me like that, I would still feel a little bitter about exiting college, you know.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I feel like that life gives us those people as we need them, right? I tell Scott all the time, you know, that kind of people come in and out of your lives as you need them to, and friendships can be seasonal or they can be, you know, forever, but it takes a lot of work, right? Just like any sort of relationship. But I do feel like that there are certain times when you're just like the right time, saying the right exact thing that I need to hear, and I believe that those things are all happen purposefully. So sounds like that your professor, you know, with her being able to just kind of lay it on the line and be all open and honest with you was a huge blessing. And
Yeah.
um, it's really interesting when you go back and hear those moments, because you're like, I haven't talked about this person in so long, or I haven't said that, but then you can pinpoint exactly where you were and kind of what your thoughts were and all those things and all the things that kind of embody that moment, almost like, and tell it in perfect description. And so it's weird that we remember certain things or at certain times and we forget a lot of things until certain moments come up. And so, um, you know, I think that it's really important to kind of like highlight some of those things. So that actually is kind of a great segue into the next section here, and this is kind of actually something that is, um, I think, becoming more of a staple, just because I'm learning so much more in how to utilize this. But it's basically just using the power of thanks or thankfulness. And so maybe you have, maybe you haven't had the ability to maybe thank some of the people that are around you, or maybe who are influencing you, and things like that. And so it's something that I'm trying to teach my staff to do on a week-to-week basis, trying to teach you know, business partners, and add that to the coaching, because what happens is that it allows you to relive maybe certain memories that you experienced. It allows you to really kind of give that humility back to understanding like what you're doing and things like that. So at this point in time, do you have anybody that you would like to maybe give thanks or say thanks to? And again, um, maybe they'll see it, maybe they won't, who knows? But, you know, it's really kind of that, much like how forgiveness is for yourself, so is that thankfulness as well.
Sure, absolutely. Oh God, the list is long. Um, um, uh, First of all, Bob McKibben, Justin Frank, Mikey DiLeonardo, all those guys who believed in me when I first started horseshoeing, for sure. Um, and more recently, people who have just reached out, who didn't even really know me, but reached out to be angels for me in the last 2 years. Shannon Erin Moore with Weld Like a Girl, and Amy Core and her family, her specifically her father-in-law Tom Core. These people didn't really know me at all, and still reached out, offered me and my daughter places to live, helped us through financial hard times. Just, I I couldn't have made it through any of this stuff without these people.
Mm.
And then even more recently, people like Frank Sinclair and Danielle McCarthy and all of the people that I met at 1 Million Cups. The list would be too long to name them all. You and Scott, for giving me a place to start to tell my stories a little bit, because it's something that I've always wanted to do. So,
Well, I think that, well, first of all, thank you for sharing that. There's a lot of people, definitely. I mean, when we think back on it, right, there's so many people to go back to, but I love the fact that it went back from the beginning to recent. And so, being able to hear your story today, being able to kind of get to know you, right, for the very first time for me, maybe a second time for Scott, in a brief format. I'm thankful to just know what you're doing and what you're putting out there, and I highly encourage that you would share your story more often. So I don't know if Danielle has reached out to you about her podcast, but it is about empowering women and leadership and things like that. So I think that that would be a great spot to be able to share your story. Anytime you want to jump on any of our podcasts, we'd be more than happy to have you on there as well to kind of share some of that stuff. And then Scott has made some great connects through TikTok. So we have a lady named Ryan who runs a podcast up in Denver, and hers is really about women in sports and kind of the, being around all of that stuff. So kind of like you being in a male dominated industry. So
okay.
that could be also a connection that we could make to possibly share kind of your story and what that's been like. And I think that's something that she could definitely resonate with as well. So whatever resource you need, just simply ask. We'll be more than happy to make the connection or introduction or whatever we can do to help support you and your endeavors. And is there any, do you have like a Facebook page, or is there anything else that of places where you can self plug or that we can get you into or anything like that to help promote you?
I have, my art is on a Facebook page, but I didn't know how to set up a page for it, so I made a group.
Okay.
But it's Angel Fire Forge, and that's my art page where I showcase all my art.
Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and put a request in there now. Okay. And then if you want some help, to actually create a page and transition so you can have both, we can definitely do that too. That's fine.
Okay.
And then is there anything else or any other places that that people can connect with you?
I have another Instagram page at Angel Fire Forge.
Okay.
And my TikTok is at Angel Fire Forge too.
Oh, perfect. So you are on TikTok as well.
But that's
Okay.
just goofy. But I have some art on there too. So.
Okay. That's okay. I mean, people get to know you in different capacities, and I'm kind of the same way. So like Facebook gets all of family, gets all of everything else. Instagram is really kind of more of the poetry, more of kind of just a deep dive into me. TikTok is a little bit more of the coaching stuff. So I totally understand.
Yeah. I'd love to read more of your poetry for sure.
Oh.
I used to write poetry, but I can't anymore. I lost it.
I have several blogs. I don't really write too often up, but I'd be more than happy to send you the link
That'd be great.
If you're bored one day, you can go through and take a look.
That'd be great.
Scott, do you have some pod decks for us today? I know you're trying to figure out this audio stuff here.
Yeah, no, because we got reverberation going on.
Yeah, I heard it. I thought I was in a concert of myself.
I'm in the room now, so I'm trying to do something.
Okay.
Let me do something.
So, Erin, we have this really cool tool called Poddex. It's created by a podcaster named Travis Brown. And it's kind of like all of those would you rather type questions, but they have like all these different decks for different categories. And it's just kind of a fun spot for us to kind of get to know you on some of these random questions.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah, and we do roundtables so that way it's not just you. We go through and answer the questions as well, so that way it's not just you taking that on.
Okay.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you, but you're frozen. Like
I know because I'm on the Poddex app, so you get the frozen face right now.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah.
So Travis, Patrick, if you're still here, you can screenshot this and we'll do something else with it.
Yeah, Patrick Massey, screenshot this. So we have a kind of an inside joke that happened. One time Scott froze and he was just had this big smile and he was kind of like standing up, and we basically just kind of said that he looked like that scene on the Neverending Story when Atreyu is riding the back of Falcor and he was like, yeah. And so ever since then, Scott got frozen. We basically just started memeing him in that scene, and we started talking about the Neverending Story all the time. And he even made a TikTok of himself about it. So yeah, we'll have to get connected on TikTok so you can watch it. It's hilarious.
Heck yeah, that'd be great.
So the first one comes from The Future Freaks Me Out, and it says, do you celebrate other people's victories and accomplishments?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, I think I'm always wanting to find reasons to celebrate people. I always love to prove my haters wrong too. And again, that's kind of that Mamba mentality that we talked about from Kobe Bryant. Haters are necessary. All of the best ones, right? Have people talking about them, good and bad. So I love to celebrate victories. I also love to prove people wrong.
Yeah.
I think it's important, really, because it is the mindset of abundance that there's plenty to go around. So by being able to celebrate other people's wins, I think if you're in their corner and you end up starting to have the wins, I think it should be reciprocated. But sometimes people are only focused on themselves, but you can't really worry about what other people are thinking and whatnot. So,
Right.
But I think it's huge to be able to celebrate other people's wins because you just never know. You could be that one person that really supports them. And it ultimately kind of depends, too, on how they go about to celebrate it. I've seen some stuff where it's like, hey, come watch us receive an award. I was like, all right, that's cool. Well, what does that do for me?
Right.
I think too, you got to remember that celebrating somebody else's light can't take away from yours,
Mhm.
100%.
Next one. What will be obsolete that people are addicted to currently 20 years from now?
Oh boy.
Facebook.
Definitely.
As I've built my entire business off of Facebook, right? So I'm like, I kind of hope that doesn't happen. But honestly, there's bound to be another platform at some point. I'm really enjoying Clubhouse. I'm not sure if you've experienced or gotten a chance to check that out yet, Erin. But yeah, so and I'm also not sure if you're had a chance to maybe get into some podcasts or anything like that, but Clubhouse is kind of like jumping from one podcast to another, but you can actually be an active participant. It's kind of like the networking that we're missing in today's world because you show up, you only have a picture of and a profile of somebody, so there's that unjudgmental bias of what does somebody maybe look like, right? And then all of a sudden you get to hear them in real time and you're like, oh my gosh, that person's dropping nuggets. And so I'm going to follow them and I'm going to like them. And they may go into a different room and you're like, hey, I want to see what this person's listening to in this room. And so the best part is that like it doesn't stop. The worst part is that like it doesn't stop, because I can easily find myself on there for hours feeding my subconscious or jumping into rooms of poetry and sharing with other people and listening to them. And I had Scott in there with the one, and I think from the time that he was in there was almost 2 hours listening, but I had been in there for probably 3 or 4 hours before that, just listening to other stuff. So if that's something you're interested in, I'll be more than happy to get you an invite there.
Sure. Okay.
And then what are your thoughts of anything that you think is popular now that may be obsolete in the future?
Oh boy. I don't know. I think so many things will be. Facebook being one of them for sure. Oh goodness. I don't know. I'm hopeful that we still remember how to have face-to-face communication. I really am, because I
Yeah.
think that's maybe I hope.
Yeah. Yeah. Scott?
I think it's going to be Facebook. You've got other platforms that are starting to perk up and starting to come into play. So I think Facebook, but you'll probably end up having one huge social media platform that combines everything that you see. It's just a matter of really trying to find that way to separate where people aren't hateful and all the craziness that you have going on. But I just don't know if you'll ever get there, because now you're dealing with humans and their tendencies to sometimes be idiots.
I already know what that single platform is going to be if it continues at this rate.
What are you going to say, Clubhouse?
No, I was going to say Amazon.
Oh, well, yeah. For all we know, yeah.
Is there one more question, or are we good?
Yeah, let's see here. Well, no, we won't get there. Philosophy here. Let's see what comes up. Let's see here. So this is kind of interesting. Would this world be better or be worse without teachers and formal education?
Ooh. Oh boy.
That's why I said it was interesting.
That is a good one. I don't think it would be better or worse. I think that teachers and formal education have their place, but I think that parents need to remember that they're part of it, and that just like I said earlier, the school and teachers and formal education is a gigantic influence in a kid's life, but so are parents, and school can't be a substitute for, mentoring or finding mentors for your kid or being a mentor for your kid. I think that all of it is formative.
I love that. I'm going to say that it would be worse only because of the teacher perspective. Gosh, I can even remember the teachers that I've had, right? And the difference it made in my life. I remember like my fourth grade teacher, when I got suspended, I went to school the next day, and she was like, "Hey, I would like for you to stay after so we can talk." And it wasn't so much that so she could scold me. She just basically wanted to know if there was something that was going on. So she literally spent hours playing basketball with me on something that I enjoyed, to be able to really tap into that. And I'll never forget that. Right. And I remember, maybe the worst teacher I ever had basically told me I was going to amount to nothing. And so again, like, they have this ability and also kind of a little bit of responsibility to kind of help shape and mold, and they don't realize maybe the influence that they have. Now, is it 100%? Absolutely not. But I think that there are so many teachers who are doing so many great things. And that's all that you can ask for, right? Is that they are kind of a little bit of an extension from a different perspective of you, or learning perspective, where at least they can make your child feel like that your child is special, or that they can learn, or that they're experienced, or whatever, all those different things that come from having that teacher and kind of that mentor perspective. So I think that the world would be lost if we didn't have teachers, because it does take a special heart, I think, to be able to sit there and deal with 30 kids in a classroom, or deal with high schoolers in that tween age, right? Because I know the attitude that I had, and to sit there and go in day to day to deal with that, I couldn't
Not
do it.
me.
So
I didn't have an attitude
yeah,
at all.
so but yeah, so definitely from a teacher's perspective, much love to them, and thank you if you're a teacher watching this. We definitely respect all the things that you're doing, and thank you.
Yep. I look at it, I think it's just really ultimately, I think it's a shift in the education system that we have right now. I think going away from where we're at with the education system, it's one that it's still when we were in the Industrial Revolution age with factories and all that craziness. It's got to start switching over. Teachers, I think, have to have a little more freedom. But that's the interesting thing when I look at high school to college. When I went back to college, I had professors that actually were doing real life stuff and coming in and teaching what they were doing in real life. High school teachers, I think you kind of get the short end of the stick sometimes because that's all they know is the teaching realm, and they're teaching from the book foundation on how to properly teach what they've been shown. But that experience, if you got somebody that's trying to teach computer science that isn't in that industry, that really doesn't suffice because that's a rapidly changing industry that you could be teaching principles from like 5 years ago. And so I think it's not getting rid of it, but doing some shifts ultimately would help to make the education system a better place. But it's a matter of how do we get that route, because we already know a lot of times the education system is really just setting up to have the employee mindset and be stuck, and then looking and say, can you regurgitate information that's been thrown at you, and can you follow the rules? As entrepreneurs, we already know that's not how this works. So I don't think it's worse or better, but if we make some shifts, then I think we'd be heading in a better direction.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well,
you got Rudy here.
I know our society would die
Hi,
without
Rudy.
teachers. I think they saved my crazy butt. Absolutely. No, you're right, man. And Rudy has an awesome story. So we're actually going to get him on probably, hopefully next week onto the Cypher. So for those of you who are tuning in here in Colorado Springs, definitely want to encourage you to go and check out Nerd Night. It's actually its inaugural event tonight at Kawadi at 7 o'clock. So if you are able to make it downtown, it's going to be a great event. And then I believe Memoirs will be next week. So
Monday.
that's hosted by Flip Awesome Aguilera. If you don't know him, he's awesome. We've had him on here a couple of times. We got to get him back. But Erin, how was your experience on the Cypher this evening?
I am absolutely honored. Really. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you coming in and just basically saying, you know what, I don't know what this is about, but the answer is yes. And
Yeah.
hopefully it wasn't too scary. But again, the boldness, right? And everything. So honestly, it was like such a great pleasure to be able to learn a little bit about you and hear about your story. I did send a friend request, so I'd be more than happy to kind of also send you some links to poetry, but also we want to make sure that we get your stuff posted in here. And I look forward to learning more about your journey and learning more about you. Scott, any closing thoughts from you this evening?
No, ultimately, it's like when people come on here, I'm very appreciative that people jump on here with us. Like I met Erin at 1 Million Cups, heard her story, walked up to her and said, "Hey, thank you for sharing, be vulnerable and transparent. Would you like to come on and just do some more deep dive stuff?" And I know last night we're like, "Are you good for tomorrow?" And you're like, "Yeah, I don't remember what it is. How does this work?" And so this is just the perfect example. But I hopefully, because I think you got that factor that you sometimes speaking in front of people is not something that you kind of is your favorite thing to do. But hopefully this kind of opened up. Well, you did it with the 1 Million Cups. And yeah. But hopefully this was kind of just an enhancement of what you experienced with 1 Million Cups and really being in front and share your story. I think ultimately by being able to share it more and letting people know about it, you have that power, that story that really is going to set you up to make an impact in a lot of lives and end up helping people to say, okay, Erin went through this situation, my situation that I'm going through, I'll be able to get through it. And I think it's just another outlet for you to really impact the lives through some different means of what you're doing with the ferrying, but also getting out there and just sharing your story and just being vulnerable and transparent, which I think, like Daniel shared and you've talked about it, you're just very bold and you're stepping into it and just understanding the power of what you have with the journey that you've been on.
Thank you.
Erin, anything, any closing thoughts from you or anything that you would like to say?
Not really. Other than go for it. Like, do the thing. Do the thing that you're scared to do. Do it.
Well, that's perfect. Guys, if you are catching this on the replay, go ahead and type in hashtag Erin if you would like to connect with her. That just kind of lets us know that you're okay with maybe her being able to shoot you a friend request or a DM in case you have more questions about possibly her story or maybe some of the things that she's gone through. We always enjoy having people being able, the ability to connect. And if you are catching this also on the replay, just type in hashtag replay. You can also catch this on our Facebook page, so facebook.com/2nativesons. We would love the support. But again, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Dreamer Cypher. And Erin, if you'll just hang on here after we go ahead and end this, we'll just chat with you for just a few more moments.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Signing off.